However, although the stone talisman glowing shadow had paused, after a while, it once again returned to the starting point of Wonder Gate Seal. Yet, even at its second repetition, Lin Dong was disappointed when he realized that the glowing shadow still stopped at the same place it had previously. Even though it kept repeating itself over and over, there was still no further improvements to the Wonder Gate Seal. Lin Dong blankly stared at the stone talisman glowing shadow. A long time later, he finally reached his wit's end, and gave up. As he sighed, he self-mockingly said, "Forget it, I'll just make do with what I have. At least it's still more complete than the incomplete version written in the manual." After saying this, Lin Dong stretched out his hands, as he imitated the stone talisman glowing shadow and formed hand seals. This lasted for a long time before Lin Dong finally relaxed his hands and took in a deep breath. Though the hand seal were complicated, under the perfect tutelage of the stone talisman glowing shadow, committing these hand seals to mind was not a difficult task. However, though it was easy to remember these hand seals, it would be a different story when he was forced to use them in a battle. According to the incomplete manual, this Wonder Gate Seal is split into 4 chapters. However, the incomplete manual only records the first chapter of hand seals. If I'm not mistaken, the extra hand seals displayed by the stone talisman glowing shadow belong to the second chapter. Yet why can't the glowing shadow restore the third and fourth chapters as well? Could it be too complex for it to handle? Lin Dong's pupils flickered from side to side as he racked his brains for a solution. In the end, he could only shake his head as he sighed, if it's 2 chapters then it's 2 chapters. Anyways, with my current strength, it would be a pretty good accomplishment to master the first chapter of Wonder Gate Seal. Lin Dong consoled himself in his heart, before exiting the spiritual domain with a tinge of regret. On his bed, Lin Dong's tightly shut eyes finally opened. His strong and healthy figure jumped off the bed before concentrating his energy into his abdomen, as his hands came together to form rough imitations of those complicated hand seal. As he moved from one hand seal to the next, ripples of Yuan power were suddenly transmitted from the Yuan power seed within Lin Dong's channels. However, its movements were extremely minute, and after flickering, it disappeared once again. As the ripples faded, Lin Dong helplessly shook his head. Although he had memorized the hand seal, in order to reach the stage where he could use Yuan power and hand seal method in tandem, he still had a long way to go. After all, when all is said and done, the first chapter of Wonder Gate Seal was already considered as a level 3 martial arts. The first chapter of Wonder Gate Seal is already equivalent to a level 3 martial art. If the second chapter is added, then even if Wonder Gate Seal could not be considered as a level 4 martial art, it would definitely still tower over the other level 3 martial arts. As Lin Dong's thoughts reached this point, the gloominess from before weakened considerably. He lightly released out a sigh, as his hand reached to retrieve the stone talisman from his body. However, he suddenly noticed something from the corner of his eye and his complexion greatly changed. What is going on? The stone talisman had turned slightly dark and the originally lukewarm jade-like feeling had almost dissipated completely. Even the strange mystical characters that covered it had also become barely discernible. The current stone talisman looked almost no different from a rock by the roadside. It was as if the stone talisman had lost its power supply and turned back into a normal rock. Energy deficiency? A thought flashed in his mind, causing the franticness in Lin Dong's heart to scatter. Only now did he vaguely understand why the stone talisman glowing shadow could only restore till half of the chapters before automatically stopping. Perhaps this stone talisman required energy in order to perfect these martial arts. Since it had already expended its energy on Penetrating Fist, 8 Desolation's Palm, and now Wonder Gate Seal, its original energy source had been depleted. That should be the case. In his room, Lin Dong wiped off the cold sweat from his forehead. Since he now knew where the problem lay, he could devise a solution to solve it. After all, this stone talisman was too important to him. No matter what, he could not afford to let anything happen to it. Tien, we have made the following name changes to some skills. Yo Shenjiang, Roaming Fist to Wandering Palm. Qi Yin, Mysterious Seal GT Wonder Gate Seal. Huifeng Mianshou, Gentle Whirling Palm GT Velvet Hand of Returning Air. Chapter 30, A Minor Accomplishment. Lin Dong knew that there were 2 methods to acquire more energy, from elixirs or from Yuan power. The likelihood of the former was comparatively less. Based on the ability of the stone talisman to refine pills, it did not seem to be too interested in the energy contained in elixirs. Therefore, he had to rely on Yuan power. As this realization dawned on Lin Dong, he hesitated for a moment before he slowly closed his eyes. As he felt the Yuan power seed within his body, a weak glow suddenly emerged at the center of Lin Dong's palm. A weak trace of Yuan power simmered below the skin on his palm. However, the Yuan power was unable to break out from body. After all, based on his current ability, he had yet to reach that level of mastery over yuan power. Buzz. Nonetheless, just as Lin Dong frowned, while gripping onto the stone talisman, it suddenly jolted and he could suddenly feel streams of energy within him being violently sucked out by the stone talisman. Due to that suction force, the small trace of yuan power simmering below the skin on Lin Dong's palm was instantly swallowed up by the stone talisman. However, the stone talisman was not satisfied, as Lin Dong felt the suction force extend into his body and continue to absorb more yuan power from the yuan power seed within him. This sudden change caused Lin Dong's face to turn pale. This yuan power seed was the fruits of his labor after more than half a year of training. If it was completely sucked dry by the stone talisman, all his hard work would have gone down the river. Just as Lin Dong panicked, a sharp pain abruptly emerged from his palm. He hastily turned to look, only to see that the stone talisman had unexpectedly started to embed itself into his palm. The rate at which the stone talisman was fusing with Lin Dong's palm quickly sped up. Just as he hurriedly tried to pluck it out, the stone talisman had already slipped into his palm. However, his palm was completely unharmed with not a single scratch on his skin. As the stone talisman slipped into Lin Dong's palm, the suction force gradually became weaker, until it eventually disappeared. Lin Dong suppressed the panic in his heart as he turned to look at his palm, only to find a row of faint glowing symbols. These symbols looked like they were imprinted underneath the skin of his palm, and were hard to find unless one looked closely. These symbols were not foreign to Lin Dong as they were exactly the same symbols on the stone talisman. As he gazed at the mysterious symbols, Lin Dong stood at a loss for words. He could vividly feel that the stone talisman had entered his palm. Perhaps it was because of this physical connection, Lin Dong now felt an increased familiarity with the stone talisman. As he attempted to interact with the stone talisman inside his palm, Lin Dong closed his eyes, and instantly, he was brought into the spiritual domain. In there, the brightness of the third glowing shadow seemed to have recovered slightly. As expected, the stone talisman needs yuan power in order to perfect martial arts. Upon witnessing this scene, Lin Dong nodded his head as he finally grasped one of the mysteries behind the stone talisman. He closed his eyes and retreated from the spiritual domain. Ever since the stone talisman entered his body, he could now enter the spiritual domain whenever he wanted. The yuan power in my body is too weak. Hence, the stone talisman is still unable to perfect Wonder Gate Seal. I guess this martial arts is indeed rather complex. Lin Dong muttered to himself as he curled his fingers into a fist. Looks like I will have to first improve my strength as quickly as possible. Lin Dong softly sighed. He finally understood that the stone talisman required a huge amount of yuan power in order to perfect higher-level martial arts. Previously, when it encountered a level 1 martial art like penetrating fist, it could easily perfect it. However, now that it had encountered a higher-level martial arts, which was furthermore incomplete, it needed the support of vast quantities of yuan power. Upon this thought, Lin Dong decided to temporarily suppress his desire to master Wonder Gate Seal. As he sat down on his bed, he took out a bottle of stone talisman Ling liquid and dripped a few drops into his mouth. Soon after, his body began to absorb streams of pure medicinal power as his yuan power seed gradually grew. In the following month's time, Lin Dong decided to seclude himself. He was rarely seen walking about in the Lin family as he focused all his time and effort on training. Thanks to help from the stone talisman Ling liquid, various elixirs pills and his tireless training regime, he managed to achieve significant progress. Within a month's time, the yuan power seed within Lin Dong's body had grown in size by a few times. In fact, the yuan power contained within far surpasses the amount he had during the family competition. Though he had yet to advance to tempered body 8th layer, it was only be a matter of time. As for the first chapter of Wonder Gate Seal, Lin Dong had been ceaselessly practicing it during this period. Hence, he had become more and more proficient and could now better use yuan power and hand seal methods in tandem. However, with regards to the second chapter of Wonder Gate Seal, regardless of how hard he drilled, Lin Dong was still unable to activate any yuan power in conjunction with it. Perhaps, his strength was still too weak. Nonetheless, his hard work over this month had indeed paid off. In the dense forest, Lin Dong sat atop a stone block with his eyes tightly shut. Faint traces of sweat were visible on his body, indicating that he had just went through a period of vigorous training. As Lin Dong sat with his eyes closed, traces of yuan power floating in the air were constantly flowing into his body in tandem with his breathing and nourishing every part of his body. Of course, the trickling yuan power was unable to satisfy Lin Dong's demand. Therefore, he gently swallowed a flaming crimson reisher pill. As the pill entered his body, a powerful medicinal power instantly exploded in his body. In that instance, Lin Dong could sense an invigorating feeling constantly coursing through his bones and tissues. As the medicinal power coursed through his body, it was refined by his channels into traces of yuan power, which then assimilated into his yuan power seed. Buzz buzz. As more and more yuan power flowed into his yuan power seed, the yuan power seed, which had never moved before, suddenly trembled slightly. A faint mist that was previously surrounding the yuan power seed turned into a glowing halo as it spiraled around the yuan power seed. Just as the glowing mist turned into a halo, Lin Dong could clearly feel that the yuan power seed within him had started to flow along his channels and move towards his lower abdomen. However, just as the yuan power seed reached the end of his inner Bodhis channel, an invisible resistance appeared. It was like an invisible wall that immediately stopped the yuan power seed in its tracks. Faced with the obstruction of the invisible wall, the yuan power seed tried to forcibly barge through. However, after a few tries, there seemed to be little effect and it could only grudgingly give up. Tempered body 8th layer. After the yuan power seed was blocked off by that invisible force, Lin Dong slowly opened his eyes. As he exhaled deeply, a look of excitement flashed in his eyes. His yuan power seed had grown several times in magnitude since the family competition. Based on his current progress, he should be already at tempered body 8th layer. That invisible barrier should be the Dan Tian barrier. If I can break through this barrier, my yuan power seed would be able to enter into my Dan Tian and lay its roots securely in there, forming a stable foundation for training. Lin Dong murmured to himself. When the yuan power seed laid its roots into his Dan Tian, it is a major sign that one was about to advance to tempered body 9th layer. However, based on his current situation, he still had to work hard for a period of time before he could reach that step. Nonetheless, progressing from tempered body 7th layer to 8th layer in merely 1 month's time was already a remarkable achievement. Therefore, it would be overly ambitious to aim for 9th layer now. After all, Rome wasn't built in a day. As he leaped off the stone block, Lin Dong straightened his body. With a serious expression on his face, he formed a complicated hand seal. In the instance the hand seal took shape, a special aura emerged from his body and filled the air. Lin Dong's hand seal swiftly changed as he formed several complex hand seals in a short span of time. Following his changing hand seals, the yuan power seed within his body constantly emitted streams of yuan power, which rapidly flooded towards Lin Dong's palm. Go! As the glow on Lin Dong's palm gradually became brighter, he suddenly let out a roar as he slammed his palm onto a solid rock boulder. Boom! Upon contact, the rock boulder instantly exploded, as rock shrapnel scattered in every direction. Panting heavily, a flushed Lin Dong stared at the rock debris. A look of uncontrollable delight in his eyes. He was finally able to execute the first move of Wonder Gate Seal after he had advanced to tempered body 8th layer. This overwhelming might outshined even his penetrating fist 10th echo. Level 3 martial arts are indeed in a league of their own. Dan Tian is specific spot near the navel. Chapter 31, Monster. In the dense forest, Lin Dong put away his fists, feeling some weakness in his body. Based on his current strength, executing Wonder Gate Seal once took up a huge chunk of his yuan power reserves. Thankfully, the force generated was truly tremendous and definitely worth the cost. Yuan power seed now is unable to store too much yuan power. It would be much better if I could quickly advance to tempered body 9th layer. Once he reached tempered body 9th layer, he will finally be able to open his Dan Tian. The Dan Tian had a far larger reserve compared to the yuan power seed. When he reaches that stage, he could then freely expend his yuan power. During this period of training, I have almost exhausted all of my elixir pills. As he thought about his training, Lin Dong's eyebrows knitted together. In less than half a month, he had advanced to tempered body 8th layer. However, this had came at a huge cost to him. He had expended a large amount of stone talisman Ling liquid. Moreover, his elixir pills had almost been completely used up. Right now, he only had 2 flaming crimson racier pills left. Overall, this half a month's training had nearly depleted Lin Dong's collection of resources. I must find a way to secure more elixirs. Lin Dong softly sighed as a serious expression surfaced on his face. Based on the current strength he displayed, he could get some resources from the Lin family. However, he did not care much for elixir pills refined from lower-grade elixir. Yet, he also knew that grade 3 elixirs were costly items and even the Lin family did not possess too many of them. In fact, he was already very fortunate to receive 2 stalks of flaming crimson racier as an encouragement gift previously. Lin Donga. Just as he was racking his head over this problem, a sweet voice sounded out from the dense forest. He turned to see Qing Tan hop over like a butterfly with a joyous glow on her rosy cheeks. Qing Tan, what's up? Lin Dong casually asked with a smile as he glanced towards her while he lifted up a section of the shattered rock boulder. Ling Donga, I now possess Yuan power. Thud. The piece of rock in his hands fell to the ground with a thud as Lin Dong turned and stared blankly at Qing Tan. Yuan power? Have you reached tempered body 6th layer? How is that possible? After overcoming his initial shock, Lin Dong regained his wits and a look of utter astonishment surfaced on his face. Even though Qing Tan had been harping about training for some time now, she had always slacked off. After all, tempered body training was indeed very tiring and unsuitable for some girls. Based on his calculations, even if he secretly helped her, Qing Tan would need half a year before she could reach tempered body 6th layer. However, out of the blue, she came by to announce that she already possessed Yuan power. This was practically unheard of. It was even more ridiculous than the stone talisman. As Lin Dong stood, overwhelmed with shock, Qing Tan extended her jade-like palm. On her hands, a light glow shimmered and its familiar pulse indicated that it was indeed Yuan power. How could this be? Lin Dong exclaimed as he sucked in a deep breath of air. He had never witnessed Qing Tan hard at work. How could she suddenly possess Yuan power? If his training speed was considered astonishing, then Qing Tan's speed can only be described as ethereal. I don't know either. When I woke up this morning, I felt like something was wrong with my body. And then, I discovered this. Qing Tan coyly said as she stuck out her tongue. Lin Dong's expression gradually turned serious as he grabbed onto Qing Tan's delicate hands. Even though her hand felt soft and smooth on the surface, upon applying a little pressure, one could clearly feel that her bones possessed an exceptional tenacity. This result could only be accomplished after one has trained in tempered body for a long time. As Lin Dong continued his careful examination, he suddenly discovered that beneath that toughness seemed to be a slight chill. It must be due to the chilling cold in her body. Suddenly, a light bulb lit up in Lin Dong's head. Previously, he had discovered that even though the chilling cold within Qing Tan's body was violent and savage, it was highly beneficial for a tempered body practitioner. Of course, this benefit could only extend to Qing Tan and Lin Dong, who had the stone talisman. Over the past decade, this chilling cold would periodically flare up, causing Qing Tan to be in massive pain every time. Qing Tan would be in massive pain. Perhaps, parts of her body gradually transformed due to constant attacks by this chilling cold. Though only tiny part of the chilling cold entered and strengthened her body, they accumulated in her body bit by bit. Now, even though Qing Tan did not train hard, her bodice muscles and bones had already been strengthened multiple times until Yuan power eventually appeared. With the right conditions, everything will easily fall into place. Even though she did experience day after day of tough training, her body had naturally given rise to Yuan power. Qing Tan's body must have some difference from others. Lin Dong slowly suppressed the shock in his heart. He had never heard of anyone who possessed a Yuan power seed without physically tempering one's body. If news of this got out, how devastated would those individuals desperately training to reach tempered body 6th layer be? Of course, this was not the whole truth. After all, ever since she was young, Qing Tan would be gruesomely tortured by the chilling cold every time it flared up. Therefore, in a way, she had actually paid a different kind of price to gain this naturally occurring Yuan power seed. Do not tell anyone else about this matter. Let's talk to father when he returns and ask for his opinion. Lin Dong said after a moment of hesitation. Yes. Qing Tan nodded her head obediently. She knew that this matter was very strange and if news got out, it might draw some trouble. Lin Donga, it's nearing the end of the month in a few days. The bazaar in Qingyang town will be exceptionally crowded. How about we go and take a look? Qing Tan pleaded as she begged Lin Dong with puppy eyes. Bazaar? Lin Dong was stumped. This bazaar was an event jointly organized by some of the more successful merchants in Qingyang town and all sorts of items will be sold there. Hence, it was extremely popular place. In fact, it was arguably one of the most popular spots in Qingyang town. Yeah. Lin Xiajie and the rest have all went too. Qing Tan continuously nodded her head. She was a young and lively girl and naturally these places piqued her interest. However, as she was still grounded by Lin Xiao, she did not dare to go on her own. Therefore, she tried to rope in Lin Dong. As Lin Dong muttered to himself as an idea suddenly sprung up in his head. Right now, he desperately needed elixirs and naturally he did not have the funds required to purchase the exorbitant elixirs that he needed. However, he had the stone talisman Ling liquid and his last 2 flaming crimson racier pills. These 2 items are definitely valuable. In particular, the flaming crimson racier pills were especially prized. Furthermore, these items all contain exceedingly pure Ling Qi. Compared to normal elixirs, they were much more potent. Therefore, it was almost assured that there will be many people clamoring to buy these items from him. However, he could not sell too many of these items as that might arouse others' suspicion. Moreover, Lin Dong was highly reluctant to part with any of his stone talisman Ling liquid or elixir pills. However, once he sold these items, it will be an easy matter by the elixirs that he required. As he stumbled upon this thought, Lin Dong could not help but smile as he felt a weight lifted off his chest. He had finally found a solution to this thorny problem. Alright, let's go visit the bazaar. After he made up his mind, Lin Dong did not want to waste any more time and he quickly agreed with a chuckle. When she saw that Lin Dong was willing to accompany her to the bazaar, Qing Tan's eyes curled into a crescent moon. Her sweet expression was truly mesmerizing. Chapter 32, The Underground Bazaar. The bazaar was located in the North Plaza of Qingyang Town. Coincidentally, this was where numerous influential factions came into contact with each other. And because of the various conflicts between the groups, not one of them was able to take control of this area. Thus, the bazaar was established. In the bazaar, there were various establishments set up by different factions in Qingyang Town. Due to this profitable arrangement, most of the factions tolerated the existence of the bazaar and eventually a strange, delicate balance was struck. Even outside of town, the Qingyang Town Bazaar was very well known. Therefore, besides the local crowd, it also attracted some bandits from the neighboring villages. However, this helped to increase the diversity of the crowd and hence even the local tyrants, the Lai and Xie family, did not dare to seize this area for themselves in fear of destroying their cash cow. When Lin Dong and Qing Tan arrived at the bazaar's entrance, they could not help but gasp as they saw the flood of people and the ruckus inside the bazaar. This bazaar was definitely the largest market around Qingyang Town and its crowds were indeed intimidating. Let's go. Lin Dong looked at the bazaar with an inquisitive gaze. These days, he rarely ventured into these kind of places. Nonetheless, as a young man, he was still curious about them. After he spoke, he grabbed Qing Tan's tiny hand and burrowed into the bazaar. In the bazaar, the variety of items displayed was dazzling. Even though the streets were relatively wide, due to the overwhelming amount of people present, they still felt somewhat congested. Qing Tan and Lin Dong were dripping with sweat after merely walking through a small alley. However, Qing Tan was extremely excited and her tiny face flushed in excitement. Together with her adorable laughter, she looked extremely cute and inadvertently drew much attention from the crowd. As they turned to look, many of them were left breathless as they saw her picture-perfect looks and snowy white skin. At last, the two of them stopped at a lavish building located at the tip of a street. This part of the bazaar was considered as a rather posh district. The Lei family, Xie family, and the Raging Blade Dojo all had shops here. Qing Tan, wait for me here. I will be right back. Lin Dong reminded Qing Tan as he scanned the surroundings. Then, he slipped into the crowd and disappeared from view. As he traversed through the crowd, Lin Dong casually bought a bamboo hat from a little shop, giving him a peace of mind before he returned to one of the main streets. Finally, he stopped before a giant black door. There were all sorts of people in the bazaar. Naturally, some of the items sold here could attract unwanted attention due to a variety of reasons. Therefore, an underground bazaar was born. The place that Lin Dong had arrived at was one of those underground bazaars. In this place, one can easily sell their goods at a fairly reasonable rate, no questions asked. Outside of the giant black door, there was a constant stream of visitors. However, just like Lin Dong, all these visitors wore a black bamboo hat to conceal their identities. As he lightly spit out a sigh, Lin Dong suppressed the anxiety in his heart and calmly walked through the door. As he stepped through the door, he could sense an ominous aura that caused a chill to be felt on one's skin. Behind that door laid a long alleyway. Following the path, Lin Dong discovered several tightly shut doors along the way. He knew that this was where the transactions took place and he quickly looked for a half-open door before walking in. As he entered the room, he saw that it was rather dimly lit and a large table stood in the middle. The center of the table was blocked by a black metal grill and just inches below it was a small opening. Please take a seat. If you have any items to exchange, please put them in the slot. A seemingly aged voice sounded out from behind the black metal grill. By now, the fear in Lin Dong's heart had subsided. As he sat down, he took out a transparent bottle from his sleeve. Contained within the bottle were 10 drops of stone talisman Ling liquid. However, these drops were not pure as they had been diluted by Lin Dong. A medicinal liquid refined from an elixir. It is very good for tempered body practitioners and it can be used for treatment purposes as well. Lin Dong deliberately croaked in a strange voice. Even though it sounded terrible, it helped to mask his real voice. A wrinkled palm reached out and took the glass bottle. Soon after, Lin Dong heard a dripping sound as the man inside was trying to examine the properties of the Ling liquid. This examination took nearly 10 minutes before the voice once again sounded out from behind that window. This medicinal liquid has approximately the same amount of Ling Qi as a grade 2 elixir. It is also gentle in nature and thus very suitable for tempered body practitioners. Since it also has medicinal properties, I am willing to pay you a higher price. What do you want in exchange? Lin Dong's finger trembled as he marveled at the shopkeeper's ability. After slightly hesitating, he answered, 7 stalks of grade 3 elixirs. That's too much. Your medicinal liquid is too luxurious for tempered body practitioners to use. On the other hand, though it has some medicinal properties, it is also too wasteful to use it for treatment. Therefore, it is not easy to sell. After a moment of silence, the man behind the window replied. He was evidently bothered that Lin Dong had asked for such an exorbitant sum. How about 3 stalks of grade 3 elixirs? 6 stalks. Lin Dong firmly replied. 5 stalks. That's the best I can do. It was as if the man behind the window shook his head as he resolutely replied. This was evidently the highest he could offer. Deal. Lin Dong shrugged his shoulders as under the bamboo hat, a smile emerged on his face. 10 drops of Ling liquid that had been diluted once could actually be exchanged for 5 stalks of grade 3 elixirs. This was a pretty good harvest for him. It did not matter if the shopkeeper had intentionally short-changed him, after all he personally did not care much for the diluted Ling liquid. The shopkeeper was extremely efficient. Within 5 minutes, an intricate box was pushed out from below the window. As Lin Dong opened the box, he saw 5 thumb-sized dark yellow fruits quietly resting within. He could faintly smell a fragrant aroma drifting up from them. Grade 3 elixir, yellow mud fruit. Lin Dong obviously recognized these dark yellow fruits. After carefully inspecting the goods, he nodded his head in contentment as he kept the wooden box. Then, he swiftly left the room. After Lin Dong exited the room, the metal barrier was slowly raised. Behind, stood an elderly man dressed in gray robes. As he held onto the bottle, he smelt the aroma from within before gently nodding his head. Old shopkeeper, is this thing really worth 5 yellow mud fruits? Standing behind the old man, a middle-aged man with a bloodthirsty stench growled. This medicinal liquid is extremely beneficial for any tempered body practitioner. I believe that either the Lei or Xie family, or Raging Blade Dojo will be glad to purchase it for an exorbitant sum. The old man replied with a faint smile. Oh? Should I run a background check on that fellow then? The middle-aged man was momentarily shocked, however just as his words left his mouth, the expression on the old man darkened. Upon witnessing this scene, the middle-aged man immediately shut his mouth. Don't you know our rules? If you wreck our reputation, how would we continue on in Qingyang town? The middle-aged man hastily nodded after hearing the old man reprimand him. Snort. The old man snorted as he stood up and left with the bottle. After Lin Dong came out of the underground bazaar, he strolled about randomly in the huge bazaar for a while before speedily throwing away the bamboo hat and heading towards a certain street. At the place where they had initially parted, Lin Dong easily found Qing Tan, who was still obediently waiting for him there. Just as he prepared to bring her to once again roam about, the latter suddenly pulled at his arm. Lin Dong shifted his gaze only to see a familiar figure walking out from the entrance of the building. Unexpectedly, it was Lin Shan. As Lin Dong saw Lin Shan, the latter also discovered the two of them. Initially, a pleasantly surprised look burst forth before his expression abruptly changed as if he had suddenly recalled something as he stood rooted on the spot. Lin Dong shot a glance at the bruises on Lin Shan's face. The latter looked like he had been cruelly beaten. Glued on the spot, Lin Shan looked at Lin Dong. It was as if the former desired to walk over and yet was afraid to because of their history. In the end, Lin Shan was at a loss of what to do. Hi. Lin Dong sighed as he pulled Qing Tan over and asked, what happened? Lin Shan somewhat fearfully glanced at Lin Dong. After some hesitation, the former finally said, we ran into those bastards from the Xie family. After that, Lin Xiaojie was bullied and then we fought with them. But there were too many of them. I escaped. To find. Help. Lin Shan's face flushed red as he involuntarily dipped his head downwards. Lin Xiaojie is there too? Stunned, Lin Dong quickly recovered as his eyebrows tightly knitted together. He muttered to himself for a bit before commanding Lin Shan as he gestured with his hand, bring me there. After all, he had a fairly good relationship with Lin Xia. As for Lin Hong and Lin Shan, all of their past clashes were confined to within the family. He was not so narrow-minded as to look on without lifting a finger when such a thing happened. At Lin Dong's words, Lin Shan immediately lifted his head and looked at Lin Dong with astonishment. He clearly never imagined that Lin Dong would disregard their past enmity and extend a helping hand. With somewhat red eyes, Lin Shan forcefully nodded. Chapter 33, Xie Ting. We were originally here to have some fun. However, we encountered those bastards from the Xie family. Lin Xiaojie wanted to buy a little trinket, but those bastards intentionally caused a ruckus. In the end, Lin Xia was so angry that she could no longer bear it and started a fight. However, the ringleader of that Xia family bunch was the wretched Xie Ting. She is Xie Yingying's younger sister and currently has the strength of tempered layer 7th layer. Plus they had more people. In the chaos, that woman took the opportunity to give Lin Xiaojie a slap. The three swiftly ran towards the wide building. Lin Shan had explained everything that had happened in detail. As he was explaining, his fists clenched tightly, the extreme anger in his heart very evident for all to see. Lin Dong slightly frowned. These members of the younger generation from the Xie family were really a little too unbridled. After all, Lin Xiaojie was a girl, hitting her face was crossing the line. People from the Xie family are indeed very loathsome. To one side, Qing Tan fumed. No matter what, as a member of the Lin family, they must now show a united front. Let us make a little more haste. Lin Dong nodded in agreement as he once again accelerated. Deep in the building was a wide area littered with bits of rubble. Surrounding it were some rather popular stores. All kinds of elixirs, weapons, armors, and even martial arts manuals and crystals were on display. This place counted as one of the more high-end districts in the bazaar. Those who came here were mostly people of a certain level of status in Qingyang town. And at this moment, there were many people crowding around a spot on the fringe of the open space, gazing at the two groups within. The members from both parties were quite young, yet the atmosphere that they exuded appeared especially intense. The Xie and Lin families were both considered as major factions in Qingyang town. However, most people also knew that Lei and Xie family were constantly trying to undermine the Lin family. Therefore, they were hardly surprised to see their younger generation clash. Lin Xia, hand over the fox crystal necklace, or else, I will not let you off. Standing at the head of the Xie family's younger generation, an elegantly dressed young lady proudly stood as she remarked with a hint of ridicule on her fair oval face. Together with her thin lips, she gave off a harsh aura. Give it to you? Lin Xia snorted as she faced the young lady opposite her. On her cheek was a faint red handprint, which had been left by that BTCH when she had been struggling with the others. Lin Xia immediately ripped the snow-white necklace apart. She understood that this was merely an accessory and based on Xie Ting's status, she could hardly care for such an item. Rather, she was just intentionally stirring up trouble. Just as Lin Xia expected, after witnessing her rip the necklace apart, Xie Ting's eyebrows lifted as she snickered, "You are really a stubborn one. Looks like I will have to deal with you today." "Xie Ting, don't be too overbearing." Lin Hong, who was standing behind Lin Xia, hollered. He looked rather ragged, as if he had just been through a fight. "What can you guys do? If it was not for the magnanimity of our Xie family, do you think the Lin family can survive in Qingyang town?" Upon hearing these words, the corners of Xie Ting's mouth curled up as she ridiculed them. "Hee, let us teach them a lesson. In the future, they will know who is the master." Standing beside Xie Ting, a young man dressed in yellow clothes chuckled in a strange manner. "Yes." Just as the yellow-clothed youngster finished his sentence, another youngster standing beside immediately nodded his head with a smile. It seems like the two of them had some pull among the younger generation in the Xie family. Lin Hong's expression darkened upon hearing their conversation. He knew that on his side, only him and Lin Xia were at tempered body 7th layer, while on the other side, they had 3 people at tempered body 7th layer. If they really clashed together, they would definitely lose out. Good, let's teach them a lesson and put them in their place. A foreigner family can never compare to the local one like a little demon. Xie Ting smiled as she stared viciously at Lin Xia. Seeing that Xie Ting was in agreement, the younger generation members of the Xie family started to get excited as they stared maliciously at Lin Xia and company. Attack! Immediately, a light glow exploded on the bodies of Xie Ting and the 2 other youngsters. The 3 of them immediately dashed towards Lin Xia and Lin Hong as the rest of the Xie family's younger generation members also rushed forward and intercepted the rest of the Lin family's members. Lin Hong and Lin Xia's expression became pained as they saw the 3 of them dashing towards them. 2 against 3, they knew that they were bound to suffer. Swoosh! However, right before the trio reached Lin Xia and Lin Hong, a sound suddenly echoed from the side. The 3 of them hurriedly dodged as 3 pieces of rock were heavily slammed into a nearby post, releasing deep thuds. Who is that? The trio furrowed their eyebrows as they witnessed this unexpected development. As they turned to look, they saw 3 figures hurriedly rushing over. Leading the pack was Lin Shan, who had previously ran away after a harsh beating. Lin Dong. Lin Xia and Lin Hong gasped in unison as they saw the figure behind Lin Shan. Instantly, delight filled their eyes. "Are you all right?" Lin Dong asked as he led the other 2 towards the crowd. As he glanced at Lin Xia, his eyebrows tightly knitted together after he saw the red handprint on the latter's cheek. "Lin Dong? You are that fellow that suddenly emerged from the Lin family? Xie Ting said as her eyes darted across Lin Dong's body, the corner of her mouth pulling downwards. Why are you here? After a moment of delight, Lin Xia was a little worried again. Even if Lin Dong arrived, it would only lead to a stalemate now. We came here to enjoy ourselves and happened to run into Lin Shan. Lin Dong replied with a smile. Up till now, he had yet to look at that haughty Xie Ting, much less reply to any of her questions. Lin Dong's actions inadvertently enraged Xie Ting. She was not used to being treated as heir. Just as rage clouded her mind, suddenly a person beside her muttered something to her ears. Che, I thought he was somebody. Turns out he is the son of the disabled Lin Xiao. Xie Ting sneered. Lin Dong's body clearly froze before he turned firstly to look at Xie Ting's face and then letting out a laugh. He lifted his foot and walked toward Xie Ting. Be careful. Seeing his actions, Lin Xia hastily warned. The opponent was after all 3 tempered body 7th layer practitioners. Hehe, let me test how good this so-called Lin family genius really is. Eyeing Lin Dong as he walked over, the yellow-clothed youngster could not help but sneer before quickly stepping forward as a weak glow rapidly condensed at the center of his palm. Thump! As the youngster in yellow charged at Lin Dong, a low-sound thud immediately followed as a figure flew backwards under the astonished gazes of the crowd before finally landing heavily onto the ground. As they gazed at the sorry figure of the youngster in yellow, many of them were startled. Even the surrounding onlookers also cast astonished gazes at Lin Dong, who had so easily defeated a tempered body 7th layer practitioner. Looks like this newly risen genius from the Lin family did have some skills. Xie Zhen. Xie Ting and the rest of the Xie family younger generation members' expressions rapidly changed after seeing Lin Dong sweeping away the yellow-clothed youngster with a single swipe of his palm. You dare to attack a member of our Xie family, you're just courting death. The other tempered body 7th layer youngster rushed forward, slightly unable to believe what had happened as a hot anger burned in his eyes. Likewise, his figure was straight away blown away by Lin Dong with a thrust of his palm. HSSS. This time, quite a few people gasped. The first time might have been luck, but the second time was definitely not a fortunate coincidence. Tempered body 8th layer. Lin Xia, Lin Hong, and the rest foolishly stared at Lin Dong's back. So easily beating a tempered body 7th layer opponent can only mean that Lin Dong's strength had stepped into the 8th layer. What do you plan on doing? My sister and her gang are also here. If you don't want to get beaten, then bring your people and get out of here. Gazing at how effortlessly Lin Dong had dispatched the two and then started closing the distance between them, Xie Ting's face finally turned pale. Yet she still raised her head and coldly looked at Lin Dong. She did not believe that Lin Dong would dare to hit her. Faced with the pale oval-shaped face before him, Lin Dong laughed as an icy light shined in his eyes. He lifted his palm. Stop! In the instant that Lin Dong raised his hand, a sharp and clear voice urgently sounded out. Next, a strong wind shot straight at Lin Dong. Pa! Right before the shout could fade away, Lin Dong's expression slightly darkened. Under everyone's gazes of disbelief, his palm swiftly jerked before finally slapping fiercely on Xie Ting's face. This loud and clear slap caused the entire area to lapse into silence. Chapter 34, Lei Li. One by one, astonished gazes looked to Xie Ting, whose cheek had turned red after receiving Lin Dong's slap. The once noisy space had become absolutely silent. The silence only lasted for a moment before some people regained their wits and stared strangely at Lin Dong, evidently flabbergasted at his decision. No matter what insults spewed out of her mouth, Xie Ting was considered a beauty. Yet this did not cause even the slightly hesitation on Lin Dong's part. Fierce and decisive. Some people in the crowd secretly evaluated Lin Dong in their hearts. The methods of this genius, who had recently emerged from the Lin family, seemed somewhat different. Lin Xia and the rest were also stunned by Lin Dong's actions. As they gazed at the dazed Xie Ting, who had her hand on her cheek, a thrill emerged in their hearts. This BTCH had always despised their Lin family, and the sight of her being slapped by Lin Dong was extremely satisfying. Just as the slap landed on Xie Ting's face, Lin Dong suddenly stretched out his other palm and firmly caught an explosive blow that was heading his way. To his surprise, it turned out to be a broken rock. However, the force behind the rock was unable to make Lin Dong's arm budge at all. You hit me. You actually dared to hit me. Just as Lin Dong grabbed onto the broken rock, Xie Ting finally regained her senses. The burning sensation on her cheek caused her body to tremble. She lifted her head and glared at Lin Dong with a hideous expression, her face losing all traces of its previously haughty look. There will always be a price to pay for speaking without thinking first. Lin Dong glanced at her and replied in an indifferent manner. Who do you think you are, to dare to hit me? Lin Dong's casual expression drove Xie Ting nearly insane. Since young, who had dared to lay a hand on her? Her beautiful face twitched slightly. In the next second, she raised her palm and viciously swung it towards Lin Dong's face. Pa! Lin Dong extended his palm and easily stopped Xie Ting's palm. Just as he was about to push her off, suddenly a cold shout echoed from a distance away. I think, that should be enough? The yuan power gathering at Lin Dong's palm gradually withdrew as he tilted his head to see a young lady dressed in a fox fur coat approaching them from a distance away. The young lady gave off an elegant aura and her looks bore some similarity to Xie Ting. However, she did not exhibit an unreasonable or mean aura like Xie Ting. In fact, this lady looked very approachable, and this fact caused Lin Dong to frown. Sister. Upon seeing the young lady, Xie Ting's eyes reddened as she called out. Xie family, Xie Ying. At this point, Lin Dong also figured out her identity. This was the most outstanding member of the Xie family's younger generation, Xie Ying. You must be Lin Dong? Your actions from before were no good. Sometimes, acting rashly may cause your entire family to suffer. Xie Ying stared at Lin Dong with her autumn water eyes as she uttered casually with a hint of coldness in her voice. Where were you at when they were bullying people from our Lin family? Lin Dong replied with a sneer as he released Xie Ting while meeting the stare of the slim young lady ahead of him. Xie Ying lifted her eyebrows. Just as she was about to reply, Lin Dong followed up, spare me your bullshit. At the end of the day, whoever is stronger reigns. Since a long time ago, your Xie family has been targeting our Lin family. If you guys had the ability, you would have chased us out of Qingyang town. The reason why we still survive is because you guys did not have the power, and even if you could, you knew that the price to pay would be too high. She hit a member of my Lin family. It's only right that I hit her back. If you wish to stir up more trouble, go ahead, but spare me your ridiculous bullshit. Upon hearing these words, many people in the surrounding crowd nodded. Lin Dong's words were harsh, yet they also made sense. All these years, the Lin family had expanded rapidly, and even though they had not directly crossed swords with the Xie or Lei family, most people knew that the Lin family would not lose out on any front to the Xie or Lei family. However, if the two families allied themselves, they would surely overpower the Lin family. Nonetheless, the Raging Blade Dojo would not allow that to happen. After all, once the Lin family was eliminated, they knew that the next target would likely be them. Therefore, all these years, a delicate balance had checked these four major factions. Hence, it was childish to discuss which faction would eliminate which. Xie Ying was at a loss for words at Lin Dong's retort. Her face instantly turned slightly ugly. Yes, well said. Indeed, whoever is stronger will reign. Just as Xie Ying was left speechless, a chuckle suddenly sounded out and a figure jumped down from the second floor. Straightening his back, an overwhelming pressure was felt by every younger generation member present. Lei Li. As they stared at the well-built young man, the expression on Lin Xia and the rest changed and they quickly crowded behind Lin Dong, a look of worry in their eyes. Big brother Lei Li. The members of the Xie family shouted out in delight. In particular, Xie Ting was even more ecstatic. Lei Li, he should be Xie Ying's fiancé and the so-called #1 younger generation member in Qingyang town? Lin Dong's eyebrows furrowed as he stared at the young man. The latter was approximately 17 to 18 years old and his body was very tall and well-built. Furthermore, since he was quite good-looking and wore a bright and confident smile, he possessed a glamour that was lacking in the rest of the younger generation members. Ying, let me handle them. Lei Li smiled as he tenderly looked at Xie Ying. Yes. At the sight of Lei Li, Xie Ying also let out a small smile. Soon after, she turned back to look at Lin Dong as a smug expression surfaced on her lips. You must be Lin Dong? Haha. I must admit, I agree with what you said before. However, let's make one issue clear. If it were not for the interventions by Raging Blade Dojo, the Lin family would have already been chased out of Qingyang town like dogs running away with tails beneath their legs. Lei Li chuckled as he observed Lin Dong. If the Lei and Xie family were not allies, you would not dare to utter such words. After all, that's only an if. Lin Dong casually replied with a smile. Very well, you have a way with words. Lei Li's eyes narrowed as he shrugged his shoulder before cracking his knuckles. He looked right at Lin Dong and he smiled. I must admit once more that I fully agree with something else you said previously. At the end of the day, the stronger one reign. Right now. Perhaps my power is stronger than yours and I wish to repay the slap that you gave Tinger. Upon hearing Lei Li's words, the expression on Lin Xia and the rest instantly changed. It was reputed that Lei Li had long advanced to Tempered Body 9th layer. Even though Lin Dong was at Tempered Body 8th layer, he was unable to contend against Lei Li. Thump. Lei Li obviously did not plan to allow Lin Dong any time to reject. Thus, just as he finished his words, he immediately dashed forward and appeared in front of Lin Dong. On his fist, a thick glow swiftly emerged and the force behind that blow caused Lin Xia and the rest to turn pale. Back off. As he saw Lei Li's lightning-quick attack, Lin Dong's expression focused as his back knocked heavily against Lin Xia and the rest, pushing them aside. Soon after, a series of crisp echoes reverberated in the plaza. Pa 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 pa. Penetrating fist ninth echo? Upon hearing this familiar noise, many people in the crowd were shocked as they stared at Lin Dong with awe in their eyes. They did not expect that this latter could actually master penetrating fist at such a tender age. However, just based on that alone, it was still insufficient to endure Lei Li's attack. Pa! Almost as if he knew what the crowd was thinking, after the ninth echo sounded, a soft minuscule echo sounded out from within Lin Dong's body. However, this echo was audible only to Lin Dong. Bang! Under the watchful gaze of the crowd, both of them clashed together with their mighty blows, causing a giant invisible shockwave to scatter from the epicenter. Chapter 35, Preliminary Exchange. Thump! A low muffled sound was heard as both fists collided. The resulting impact caused all the dust on the surrounding ground to be completely blown away. The outcome that the crowd had expected did not materialize. Rather, Lin Dong's body stood firmly planted on the ground like a giant boulder after he received Lei Li's tempered body ninth layer blow. Dang dang! Sound of stepping. Both of them took a few steps back after the collision. Lei Li fell back by 2 steps, while Lin Dong fell by 3 steps. Overall, Lei Li's attack did not have the expected impact that the crowd had imagined. He actually managed to take that blow. As they stared at Lin Dong, who ended up evenly matching with Lei Li, a look of shock surfaced on every younger generation member. After all, Lei Li had a legendary reputation in the Qingyang town, and many people had speculated that within half a year's time, he would break through tempered body ninth layer and advance to earthly Yuan level. At that time, the strength of the Lei family will soar again. Among the younger generation in Qingyang town, Lei Li was universally recognized as number 1. However, today, this so-called number 1 was actually stopped by a younger member from the Lin family. This surprising development caused many people's eyes to pop out of their sockets. Xie Yingying and Xie Ting's facial expressions changed as a look of anxiety surfaced in the former's eyes. It looks like this newcomer Lin Dong was truly capable. In a blink of an eye, Xie Yingying calmed down. Even though Lin Dong had unexpectedly endured Lei Li's attack, it did not mean that he had the qualifications to go toe-to-toe with Lei Li yet. After all, Lei Li was at tempered body 9th layer. Hence, compared to Lin Dong, who was only at tempered body 8th layer, he was still much stronger. Furthermore, in their previous exchange, Lin Dong had used martial arts while Lei Li did not. Therefore, if they were to continue and fighting seriously, Lin Dong's loss was a foregone conclusion. Penetrating fist 9th echo? Not bad. As Lei Li stepped back, he looked at Lin Dong with a somewhat astonished look. Soon after, he smiled as he shook his head. No wonder you could act so haughty. Turns out you do have some ability. However, you might not be so lucky the next time. After he spoke, on Lei Li's claw-like hands, a thick glow surfaced as the Yuan power undulated. It seems like he was finally going to use martial arts to confront his opponent. Upon witnessing this sight, the joy that Lin Xia and the rest felt instantly turned into dread. Based on his expression, it seems like Lei Li had finally turned serious. Lin Dong's expression was calm. He knew that there was a vast gulf between tempered body 8th layer and 9th layer. Even if he had utilized the 10th echo of penetrating fist, he could barely match up to Lei Li. Furthermore, the latter had obviously trained in martial arts, and thanks to the Lei family's solid background, he was probably quite well versed in it. Therefore, if they fought seriously, Lei Li would probably have a better shot at victory. Nonetheless, Lin Dong was confident that even if Lei Li won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Phew! Lin Dong deeply exhaled as he stretched all 10 of his fingers. He was anxious to find out just how powerful his Wonder Gate Seal technique would be together with his full strength. Even though it was only the first chapter of Wonder Gate Seal, which had been abandoned by Lin Xiao and Lin Zhentian, Lin Dong knew that the might of this martial art had become stronger after it was perfected by the stone talisman Glowing Shadow. More onlookers gathered around as they witnessed the rising tension in the surrounding atmosphere. They were very interested to discover whether the upcoming talent that had emerged from the Lin family could match up to the legendary young genius Lei Li. With his palms bent back, Lei Li's glare towards Lin Dong turned increasingly vicious. The Lei family was considered as the most well-established faction in the Qingyang town, and they often despised other factions like the Lin family that suddenly invaded and came into power. Therefore, he knew that if he did not utterly defeat Lin Dong, he would become a laughing stock. Hee, this place is really crowded. Just as the Yuan power in Lei Li's body started to swirl, a contemptuous laughter sounded out. Moments later 10 figures leaped off a nearby building and directly walked towards the crowd. These 10 figures were all youngsters aged around 16 or 17. They all wore the same clothes and a picture of a wildly dancing large saber was sewn on their chest area. Raging Blade Dojo. Lin Dong was slightly stunned when he saw these people. He recognized them based on the picture on their shirts. They were from the Raging Blade Dojo, the third major faction that stood on the same level as the Xie and Lei family. Leading the pack of suave youngsters was a lean young man. That young man had extraordinarily large palms and was riddled with scars that were evidently caused by frequent practice with blades. He first glared at Lei Li before he raised his thumb and smiled at Lin Dong. "You must be Lin Dong from Lin family? Your courage and insight are indeed pretty good. Wu Yu, this is between me and him. Don't meddle in other people's business." Lei Li shouted at the smiling young man with a dark expression on his face. "If I don't step in, won't you guys act like the whole Qingyang town belongs to you?" Wu Yun rolled his eyes as he derisively answered. Looking at him, it was evident that he had some bad blood with Lei Li and the rest. "Heh, Lei Li. Since you are itching for a battle, how about I join in?" As he smiled, Wu Yun replied as he stared somewhat passionately at Lei Li and licked his lips. Upon hearing these words, Lei Li's expression darkened further. He knew that he could defeat Wu Yun. However, the people from Raging Blade Dojo were rogues and they loved fighting. Once they start fighting, they will fight until the very end like a lunatic. Therefore, under normal circumstances, Lei Li wished to avoid a fight with the latter. "Wu Yun, big brother Lei Li does not wish to fight with you. Going around to stir up trouble, is that the style of your Raging Blade Dojo?" Xie Ying asked in an indifferent manner. "I do not know if that is the style of Raging Blade Dojo, but it definitely is my style. If you have any objections, you can discuss it with me." Thought I might not accept. Facing the sarcasm in Xie Ying's words, Wu Yun seriously answered instead as he nodded his head. Xie Ying bit her red lips as her facial expression turned slightly black. Nothing seemed to be going her way today. First, she encountered a harsh straightforward talker, Lin Dong, and now she had met a hoodlum. Hence, rage filled her entire body. At Wu Yun's reply, Lin Dong involuntarily let out a smile. He seemed to have taken a liking to this smart-ass fellow. Lei Li's face twitched as his expression darkened. "All right, all you little fellows have caused enough trouble already. It's time to head home. This is a place for conducting business." Just as the atmosphere was totally disrupted by Wu Yun, a resigned voice sounded out from a nearby building. As the crowd turned to look, they saw a middle-aged man standing above and looking down at them. Behind him, stood a crowd of burly huge men. That man is in charge of the plaza. His name is Wang Jin and he is an earthly yuan practitioner. Standing behind Lin Dong, Lin Xia softly said. At this instant, she secretly heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. Now that this man had appeared, the curtain will finally close on this drama. After Wang Jing emerged, Lei Li's eyebrows frowned as he realized that today would be a difficult occasion to make his move. As the undulating yuan power dissipated in his palm, he turned to look at Lin Dong before coldly saying, "You got lucky today. Rest assured, when the Qingyang hunt arrives, I will make sure to take special care of you. Since I promised to retrieve the slap you gave to Tinger, I will make sure to keep my word. Also, Wu Yun, I will definitely give you a good beating during the hunt. When that time arrives, don't cower away." As he finished, Lei Li let out a sneer and turned to leave with Xie Ying and the rest. In the following days, he knew that once he advanced to earthly yuan level, he could easily handle both Lin Dong and Wu Yun together. As he gazed at Lei Li's back, Lin Dong slightly narrowed his eyes as a smile formed on his lips. Qingyang Town Hunt, he was now starting to look forward to it. Chapter 36, Family Gathering. As Lin Xia and the rest saw Lei Li finally depart, they secretly heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. Although Lin Dong had displayed an astonishing strength during this period of time, even they did not favor Lin Dong's odds against the reputed genius Lei Li. Therefore, it would be best to avoid a fight. Lin Xia, seems like a remarkable fellow has finally emerged from the Lin family. After he saw Lei Li left, Wu Yun turned and swept his gaze across Lin Dong before he finally looked at Lin Xia and smiled. Lin Xia rolled her eyes in response. Soon after, she patted Lin Dong's shoulders. With a proud expression, she said, "Of course. Given Lin Dongbio's speed, he can easily surpass all of you." Lin Dong shook his head in resignation as he saw how much faith Lin Xia had placed in him. Then, with a smile, he told Wu Yun, "Thank you for helping out today." He obviously realized that Wu Yun intervened in order to create chaos and prevent Lei Li from attacking him peacefully. No need for thanks. After all, we are at loggerheads with Lei Li too. If I can make him suffer, I will gladly do it. Wu Yun smiled as he flicked his hand. He did not display any airs in front of Lin Dong. Wu Yun had observed during the short exchange with Lei Li that the latter was in no way weaker than himself. Lin Dong smiled. It seems like Raging Blade Dojo and the Lei and Xie family did not have a good relationship. In that case, it was probably good news for the Lin family. After all, if these three major factions allied, even with Lin Xiao's return, the Lin family would definitely be overpowered. It's getting late, I will make a move first. Haha, Lin Dong, I will see you at the hunt again. However, when that time comes, let's hope for a good fight. The two of them chatted for a while before Wu Yun smiled and waved goodbye. Then, he left with his people. Let's return as well. As he saw the place emptying out, Lin Dong smiled and turned to tell Lin Xia and the rest. Sure. After the dramatic conflict previously, Lin Xia and the rest did not wish to stay any longer and immediately nodded their hands. Under the crowd's watchful gaze, a stream of people exited the scene. When they returned to the Lin family, Lin Dong and Qing Tian did not immediately return to their little hilltop. After all, it was the end of the month and also time for the Lin family's gathering. During this time, every key member of the Lin family would gather together and report all the various events that had occurred in the past month. In the past, Lin Dong was not invited to this gathering. However, ever since the family competition, his status within the Lin family has skyrocketed. As such, he now had a place in this family gathering. A full moon hung in the clear night sky as the cooling moonlight poured onto the ground and enveloped the earth. The Lin family's backyard was very crowded as tens of people laughed and talked merrily around a large round table. Lin Dong was seated at the left corner, and beside him were Lin Xia, Lin Hong and other elite younger generation members of the Lin family. At this family gathering, the only joyous occasion for Lin Dong was finally seeing Lin Xiao, who had been busily handling the affairs of the Blazing Manor. Naturally, Lin Zhentian was seated at the head of the dinner table. Right now, the old man was chatting with Lin Xiao and asking him for the latest updates regarding the Blazing Manor. After a short inquiry, he nodded his head in satisfaction before he finally turned to look cheerfully at Lin Dong. Today, I received a piece of news. Turns out, these young fellas have clashed with the younger generation members from the Xie family. In the end, they even attracted the attention of Lei Li. Everyone's attention was immediately directed towards Lin Zhentian. Upon hearing these words, the expression on some adults darkened as they harshly stared at their own children. These kind of events tend to happen frequently. However, each time, these little brats would return with their tails between their legs, causing their parents to be slightly frustrated. Yet when their parents tried to reason with the parents of the responsible parties, they were often unsuccessful as the other party would simply dismiss it as a childish dispute. Father, this matter was likely caused by my daughter Lin Xia. When I return, I will teach her a lesson. Lin Ken, who was sitting to one side, growled. Haha, no need to worry. This time, they did not embarrass our Lin family. Lin Zhentian smiled as he waved his hands. In fact, it seems like this old man was quite happy. He cheerfully continued. Turns out that this little brat Lin Dong has even more hidden potential than his father Lin Xiao. He not only dismissed two tempered body 7th layer youngsters, but he even managed to stop Lei Li. This is a highly praiseworthy achievement. Oh? Upon hearing these words, the crowd were slightly shocked. Lin Xiao was even more stunned as he clearly did not expect that Lin Dong was not defeated even after clashing with Lei Li. Is that true? Lin Xiao could not help but ask. Under the watchful gaze of the crowd, Lin Dong was forced to nod his head as he replied, I used penetrating fist, whereas Lei Li did not use any martial arts. It should not be counted as a draw. However, Lei Li had long advanced to tempered body 9th layer. It is remarkable that you were able to use penetrating fist to bridge that gap. Lin Ken smiled and said. Lin Dong should have advanced to tempered body 8th layer, right? Lin Zhentian smiled from ear to ear. Lin Dong secretly sighed in his heart as he nodded his head. Good grandson. Looks like our Lin family has finally produced a genius that can match up to Lei family. Lin Zhentian involuntarily let out a hearty laugh as he saw Lin Dong nodding his head. Upon hearing this, Lin Xiao and Lin Ken also let out a chuckle while a complicated expression surfaced on Lin Mang's face. There is only 4 months left before the hunt. During this period, you must work hard. If you require anything, feel free to say. Anything that I can provide shall be yours. Lin Zhentian announced with a smile as he stroked his beard.